Falterove a Carja go Belfast, Higanach Storiel Shaw. Welcome to Belfast, to this very historic place, Cave Hill, overlooking the city and the harbour. And it was here on this hill in 1795 that Theobald Wolfe and his fellow United Irishmen, including Henry Joy McCracken and Thomas Russell, gathered and pledged to work for the freedom of Ireland. In every generation since Wolfe death in 1798, Irish Republicans have honoured this founder of our movement. And we have repeated his pledge to work for Irish independence, for equality and for unity. Every year in June, we gather at Wolfe grave in Bodenstown, County Kildare. But due to the public health emergency, this year we cannot assemble in Bodenstown. So we are honouring Wolfe with this online event. Tone's great wish was to unite the people of Ireland, setting aside all sectarian division in pursuit of equality and independence. That is Sinn Féin's aim today also.
There is a quiet rural graveyard in County Kildare called Bodenstown. The name of this ruined church and cemetery has gone down in Irish history for one reason. Here is buried Theobald Wolfe Tone, one of the most important figures in the history of the Irish people. For many decades, Irish Republicans have gathered annually in Bodenstown to pay tribute to Wolfe Tone and to renew their commitment to his ideas and to his mission. But who was this man, and what did he stand for? He was born on the 20th of June 1763 in Stafford Street, now Wolfe Tone Street, in Dublin. Tone's background and the Protestant religion of his family placed him well for a privileged career in an Ireland where the system of English rule was based on blatant sectarian discrimination. Catholics and Presbyterians were penalised under the law and denied full rights of property, freedom of religion and access to jobs. The mass of the Irish people lived in rural poverty under a vicious regime of landlordism. But Wolfe Tone soon rejected this system and embraced radical politics. Convinced that English rule in Ireland was tyranny, he was deeply influenced by the democratic ideas of the French Revolution. Tone published his first pamphlet in 1790 and argued for Irish neutrality and non-involvement in England's wars. He became secretary of the Catholic Committee, which was lobbying for civil rights, and his pamphlet, entitled An Argument on Behalf of the Catholics of Ireland, had a major impact. In 1791, Tone was the joint founder of the Society of United Irishmen in Belfast and Dublin. Initially, the society sought a reformed Irish Parliament, but this soon changed. As repression tightened and as England's war with revolutionary France intensified, the United Irishmen became more radical and demanded full Irish independence. Forced into exile in America in 1795, Tone successfully lobbied the French Republic to send a military force to help liberate Ireland, and he sailed with the fleet himself in 1796. Storms scattered the ships and they had to turn back at Bantry Bay. Tone persisted and sailed again with a small French force in 1798. Captured off the coast of Donegal, Tone was taken in chains to Dublin, tried before a British Army court-martial and sentenced to death. He died in custody in the Provost Prison, Arbour Hill, on the 19th of November 1798. The British claimed it was suicide, but many believe he was murdered by his jailers to prevent his release, which had been ordered by a Dublin court. Wolfe Tone's legacy lives. His words still speak to us today.
From my earliest youth, I have regarded the connection between Great Britain and Ireland as the curse of the Irish nation, and felt convinced that whilst it lasted, this country could never be free nor happy.
The men and women of 1798 sowed the seeds for our struggle, for liberty, equality and fraternity. Centuries later, the Republican message of change continues to be heard right across this island by all those who want to see a new Ireland and a real republic. A republic that is inclusive and tolerant, a republic that delivers the highest standard of public services and support for all of our citizens equally. A republic which reflects the diversity of all of our people. It's time to build a society with a dynamic economy, with rights and entitlements, one which gives workers and families that much needed break. Envisage a republic, envisage the real republic. Plan for a country where all citizens can have a place to call their home. Where, when you need it, healthcare is provided. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your pocket. Work to build a country where everyone is treated fairly and with equality. Now, more than ever, we must press forward for a referendum on Irish unity. The Irish government must plan for a referendum, and they must plan to win the referendum.
Come then tell me, Sean O'Farrell, tell me why you hurry so. Hush your vocal, hush and listen, and his cheeks were all aglow. I bear orders from the captain, get you ready quick and soon. For the pikes must be together at the rising of the moon. At the rising of the moon, at the rising of the moon. For the pikes must be together at the rising of the moon. And come tell me, Sean O'Farrell, where the gathering is to be. At the old spot by the river, quite well known to you and me. One more word for signal token, whistle out the marching tune. With your pike upon your shoulder at the rising of the moon. At the rising of the moon, at the rising of the moon. With your pike upon your shoulder at the rising of the moon. Out from many's a mud wall cabin, eyes were watching through the night. Many a manly heart was beating for the blessed morning light. Bombers rang along the valley like the banshee's lonely croon. And 1,000 pikes were flashing by the rising of the moon. By the rising of the moon, by the rising of the moon. And 1,000 pikes were flashing by the rising of the moon. All along that singing river, that black mass of men was seen. And above their shining weapons flew their own beloved green. Death to every foe and traitor, whistle out the marching tune. And our army boys for freedom, 'tis the rising of the moon. 'Tis the rising of the moon, 'tis the rising of the moon. And our army boys for freedom, 'tis the rising of the moon. 'Tis the rising of the moon, 'tis the rising of the moon. And our army boys for freedom, 'tis the rising of the moon.
I made speedily what was to me a great discovery, that the influence of England was the radical vice of our government, and consequently that Ireland would never be either free, prosperous or happy until she was independent, and that independence was unattainable while the connection with England lasted.
So we're standing here today at the resting place of Michael Dwyer, who was one of the leaders of the 1798 rebellion. And as you can see, there's a space there free for Robert Emmet, who didn't want his epitaph written until Ireland is united. And then, as we can see, there's also an honouring of the heroes who shed their blood for Ireland during Easter week in 1916. And then in more recent times, we are honouring the men who died in the 1981 hunger strikes, who fought the great fight and gave up their lives. I'll start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and their elders past, present and future. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. This is a poem by Bobby Sands, The Rhythm of Time. There's an inner thing in everyone. Do you know this thing, my friend? It has withstood the blows of 1,000,000 years and will do so to the end. It was born when time did not exist, and it grew up out of life. It cut down evil's strangling vines like a slashing, searing knife. It lit fires when fires were not, and burnt the mind of man, tempering leadened hearts to steel from the time that time began. It is found in every light of hope. It knows no bounds nor space. It has risen in red and black and white. It is there in every race. It lies in the hearts of heroes dead. It screams in tyrants' eyes. It has reached the peaks of mountains high. It comes searing across the skies. It lights the dark of this prison cell. It thunders forth its might. It is the undauntable thought, my friend, that thought that says, I'm right.
The first storm of winter blew high, blew high. Red leaves were scattering to a gloomy sky. Red clouds were lowering o'er the plains of Kildare, when from Dublin southward the Martyrs came there. In the spring they whispered, Lord Edward bled, and the blood of host was in summer shed. Death in autumn or Connacht past, but the loss that is sorest came last, came last. Though Fitzgerald died, sure we fought them still, and we shouted vengeance on Vinegar Hill, knowing our flag would again be flown if France give ear to the prayers of Tone. Oh, twice we thought his appealing lips brought forth her armies and battled ships, and the storms of God shall not always stay. England's doom as in Bantry Bay. And oh, we said to the hopeless ones who made count of Ireland's martyred sons, the bravest lives be your morning dumb, ere the snow of winter with Tone shall come. He came, was beaten, we bear him here, from a prison cell on his funeral bier, and freedom's hope shall be buried low, with his mouldering corpse neath the winter snow. And hush one said o'er the new set sod, hope shall endure with our faith in God, and God shall only forsake us when this grave is forgotten by Irishmen.
To subvert the tyranny of our execrable government, to break the connection with England, the never-failing source of all our political evils, and to assert the independence of my country. These were my objects.
Friends, I'm very glad you could join us this evening online to honour the legacy of Wolfe Tone and the United Irishmen. I'm speaking to you from Arbour Hill. This is the resting place of the executed 1916 leaders, and close to this spot stood the prison where Wolfe Tone died in British custody. Wolfe Tone and his compatriots dearly held a vision of Ireland as a nation of unity, equality and prosperity. They saw the ending of British rule not as an end in itself, but as the starting point in establishing a republic that would flourish through the togetherness of her people. Tone was a visionary. He was an internationalist. He believed in the boundless possibilities of an independent Ireland. He believed that the uniting of Catholic, Protestant and dissenter in friendship and community was essential to realising the potential of our country. The United Irish Society declared, "We wish that our animosities were buried with the bones of our ancestors and that we could unite as citizens and claim the rights of man." Today, Republicans know that it is through overcoming animosities bound up in the divisions of the past that we will build an inclusive nation. A new Ireland must be a home to unionists, and unionist communities must be at the very heart of change. Cé go bhfuil meas agam an am atá caite, srican mid don thabhachaí. Thabhachaí in an leachtar agus a coithítar éagsúlacht ornaíní ilig. Bhí Wolfetown faoi an thabhachaí. Bhí is aige go munlíonn an méid a dhéanamid inniu amórach. Bhí na hÉireanna aontaithe thar aon rud eile lucht gníomhairí athraithe. While we respect the past, we now reach for the future. A future in which the diversity of all of our people is embraced and cherished. Wolfetown was about the future. He knew that what we do today shapes tomorrow. The United Irishmen were above all else change makers. Henry Joy McCracken, writing in the Belfast newsletter, demanded speedy repeal of the infamous traffic in the flesh and bone of man. In the 1780s, William Drennan, Robert Sims and Thomas McCabe led the campaign against the establishment of a slave trading company in the city of Belfast. Mary Ann McCracken and Martha McTeer formed the Belfast Women's Anti-Slavery League, and in the 1850s, Mary Ann could still be found at the docks in Belfast handing out anti-slavery leaflets to emigrants and sailors heading for the southern ports of the United States, where slaves still worked on the cotton plantations. The United Irishmen saw inequality and injustice, and they found the courage to act. Many laid down their lives in pursuit of independence. These ideals of the United Irishmen are not just an echo from history. That spirit of change that guided the revolutionaries in 1798 is profoundly relevant in the Ireland of today. The story of 2020 so far is the story of change. We've seen the restoration of the political institutions in the north, Brexit looms large, and we're living through the challenge and the tragedy of the COVID-19 emergency. Our ministers in the executive have been showing huge leadership during the lockdown in supporting families, our frontline workers and communities. And they're showing that same leadership as we reopen our society, supporting small business and community groups in the work to rebuild. The result of February's general election was seismic. The people voted for change. And faced with that prospect, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael clubbed together to exclude Sinn Féin, to shut out the voices of more than 500,000 people who voted for Sinn Féin in that election. The government that they now want is a government of more of the same, a government with no roadmap other than the failures of the past. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael can't be trusted. People know this. Their track record speaks for itself. In the event that this government comes to be, Sinn Féin will provide the most coherent and effective opposition in the history of this state. Our opposition will be rooted in championing change and in providing solutions to the challenges that we face as a society. And championing change means this. It means prioritising the delivery of real affordable housing. It means advancing the clear need for a single-tier public health service. It means working for childcare that doesn't cost the equivalent of a second mortgage. It means transforming Ireland so that those living with disabilities and their carers have equal rights, so that they can realise their fullest potential in an inclusive society. Championing change means delivering on what matters to workers and to families, and we will focus on getting people back to work, supporting businesses to reopen, and protecting the health and safety of our citizens. We will advance the need to reshape the economy so it delivers a decent life for workers and families, and so that you can retire with dignity at the age of 65 with the state pension. Ordinary people can't be forced to shoulder the pain of this economic crisis. Incomes must be protected, and there can be no return to austerity. Our opposition will be guided by the fact that a brighter future cannot be built by the broken politics that have failed people so badly. For too long, the state has been run by two parties who always prioritise those at the top, and workers and families have paid the price. So the days of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael having things their own way are coming to an end. And that change that has forced them into coalition together will, sooner or later, deliver a government for change led by Sinn Féin. Irish unity is the best idea for the future of Ireland. Brexit looms large, and this is a time of change in our country and between the islands of Ireland and Britain. Brexit and COVID-19 emergency have reshaped how people think and talk about Irish unity. These crises have shone a bright spotlight on the folly of partition and the border. So no longer is Irish unity discussed only in aspirational tones. Irish unity is talked about as a common sense essential to the prosperity of all our people. Growing our economy requires an all-Ireland approach. Protecting our health services requires an all-Ireland approach. Strengthening our agricultural sector and defending rural Ireland requires an all-Ireland approach. The conversation about a united Ireland is happening across the island, and people are reconsidering long-held views, looking anew at the possibility and potential of a united Ireland to deliver a better future for us all. Change is happening. So it's particularly disappointing that a united Ireland doesn't feature in the programme for government at all, not a whisper. What a missed opportunity. No government, not least a new incoming government in this period, should ignore the imperative of Irish unity. So the people are ahead of those who put together this programme for government. Sinn Féin is working for Irish unity, and we know that now is the time to start planning for a referendum on Irish unity. It's time to formalise discussions about what a united Ireland looks like, and to involve those from all backgrounds and traditions, including those from a unionist background, in those discussions. The potential of a united Ireland lays before us, and now is the time to make concrete progress on that journey to unity. The new Ireland we seek is an Ireland founded on the dream of the United Irishman. We shouldn't underestimate the promise of today. Yes, the parties of the status quo have come together to block change, but we shouldn't be disheartened, because the future is still there to be won. There are those who will tell you that the story of change is over. They are wrong. Our story of change is only just beginning. There are those who want you to let go of change. Don't listen to them. Hold tight to your ideals. A changed Ireland is far too important an ambition to relinquish. This is not a time for giving up. This is a time for coming together. This is a time to look forward with positivity and determination, because if we persevere together, brighter days will come tomorrow. History is made and society is shaped by those who dream and who act. Ireland's future will be determined by those who see beyond the challenges and the faults of now to the possibilities that beckon. This decade of opportunity must be grasped to build on our achievements, to confront our failures, and to look confidently to a new Ireland. We honour Wolfe Tone and his compatriots by believing, by working, by building a true republic of equals, a free, fair, united Ireland in which citizens prosper. And that is what we resolve to do. Eraigling le chéile is an phoblacht abu.
Sin aligra la tough we allegerin bui and our slew hearty and radnik win flavors Shanti Hoshin Share Fosta Nia Farfin Tira Nafin Trial Anakta Him Savarna Voil Ligan Argil Hombosh no Sel Legana Squew Fue la wana